Okay, so welcome everybody to the October meeting of Mumbles Community Council. Thank you all for attending this evening. If we get off to a start so that we can hopefully get through as quickly as we possibly can this agenda for this evening. So if we start off with apologies for absence. Steve?
Yeah, Chair, we've had apologies from Tim Bull, Rebecca Child, Miles Langston and Pip Reason.
Okay. Declarations of interest. Rebecca?
Yeah, personal interest on the item, the grant application from Red Community Project. I attend the same church as the applicant.
Okay, I was going to...
So, Chair, just to confirm with Rebecca, that's a personal interest then, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. I don't stand to gain anything from the application, but I do know the applicant quite well.
Yeah. And I was going to come in on that one, Steve, with the application from Ripples. I do know the applicant and I did sort of advise on putting the application together, how to go about it. So that's a personal one, I would have said.
I'll send one on that as well because I know Dennis too.
Yeah, this is a lot of people know Dennis.
Okay, thanks, Chair and Rob.
Okay. So are we okay to move on to the minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 14th of September 2021?
Just gone into council meeting. Right, I'll speak to you later. Ciao.
Sorry, can you hear me again? My mic switched off then. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Martin, yeah.
Sorry. The minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 14th of December. Has anybody got any points in relation to that? Do you want me to go through the minutes or have we take them as read? We will take them as read. So a proposal for the acceptance of the minutes. Pam, seconder. Rebecca. Okay, we take those as accepted. So if we move on to the clerk's report, point 4.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, my report was circulated with the agenda pack. I've got one additional item, which is just a reminder, I'll be sending out an email later with vacancies for various committees and subcommittees on. So, for example, planning is in need, subcommittees in need of members. So just so you're all aware that that's coming through, and if you are able to or wanting to join those subcommittees, please let me know. But I'll forward an email out later.
Yeah, sorry, could I just, I know there was some discussion at Cultural about whether twinning was a subcommittee stroke work group, or there seemed to be some view that it didn't exist at all. Is that going to be included in the list that goes out as a working group?
At the moment, it's not been set up as a working group, as it. As soon as it's set up, then I can obviously.
How does one go about setting it up? If can it be moved to a different committee, as the current committee doesn't seem to want to have twinning involvement? Perhaps it could be moved to community and social.
Well, that's council's decision. You've recently, though, just approved the changeover, so it's really up to you.
Could this be something that's considered as community and social, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think Rob is talking to us.
Sorry, what Carrie says isn't actually true. We didn't say that we didn't want anything to do with twinning. What was said in the cultural meeting was there never has been a twinning committee. We've had a representative from the full council to be a member or an observer on the Mumbles Twinning Association. We've never actually had a full committee. Or we've never had a working group on it from this council. We've only had a representative.
It's not correct.
Yeah.
It is actually correct.
Oh no, Rob.
Okay, let's not pick between ourselves. If I can just get on to Rebecca and then Pam.
Yeah, so as the current representative, there has been a working group. I know because I set up the last meeting of it, but it was some time ago now. The reason being that the work predominantly congregates around the visits, and obviously we've not had a visit in 2 years because of COVID. There is other work, work with schools and stuff that the Community Council and Twinning have worked in partnership on. So I think if what Rob's saying is that Culture are happy to be the host committee, then I think it makes sense for it to stay there. And obviously I would anticipate being on a working group. So if it's just a case of Culture making a decision to set that up, then that's probably the way to go. And we can have a meeting after a hiatus. That would be good.
Okay, Pam and then Sarah.
I was about to say exactly the same thing. It's fine. I'd be
Okay.
any working group that's set up as well.
Okay, Sarah.
Just to say, yeah, there's a lot of work involved with it, and if you're doing work with the schools as well, you do need a working group. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, Rob, if you just want to come back on that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think it's probably better for full council to set up a working group and it be independent of any committee, because I know there's nobody apart from Carrie on the cultural committee who really wants to be on a twinning subcommittee. So it's probably better the full council sets that up.
Pam and Sarah going.
How do we do
Well-
that? Is there any other committee being set up by full council? We don't have to be on Rob's committee to be part of the working party, to be anybody can join
No,
it.
no.
Well, can we just do it now?
Chair, can I just
No, but-
intervene?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Steve, I think, yeah, go on. I think,
We've taken ages to set up these groups.
Yeah.
Paul's just done the scribe, so the twinning budget comes under that heading. So under culture, can we just leave it as it is? As everyone says, you don't have to be a member of that committee to be a member of
Exactly.
a subcommittee or working party.
so, if people have got an interest, if they could let Steve know, and I'm sure we can formulate it from there, okay? So could we move on? Okay, so the next,
Chair, can you just formally propose that the report's noted?
okay, could we accept that the report is noted? All those in favour? Okay, that's it. So then move on to then the chair's report, which I've circulated previously, but I will read it out. There are a number of developments that I need to recount to council this month that relate to an ongoing projects and in relation to wider developments in the community. I am pleased, skate park. I am pleased to report that in relation to the skate park, after what seems like a somewhat extended hiatus that was outside of our control, there does now seem to be some movement on this front. City and County of Swansea have now issued the requisite notices in the local press. The failure of which to do so for the required period of time was the cause of the judicial review that the development was subject to. Hopefully, all the required criteria will this time be conformed to, and they will give us the opportunity to begin to progress further on this initiative. Underhill Park. The Underhill Park initiative also continues to move forward with the calls for tenders which have now been issued, and these are due for return on the 5th of November. I hope to be able to provide some sort of update on this at the next meeting to what progress has been made. Regular meetings are now resuming of the joint working group with MCA, and it has been agreed that going forward, MCA will provide regular written updates on progress, and these can be circulated to councillors. We've had one which we had a meeting with the joint working group, and that should be ready to be circulated fairly soon. The elephant in the room, however, in relation to future plans for this development, and one which I am sure will need to be mindful of on all other developments, is that unfortunately in the last 16 months, we have gone through an unprecedented period of change in the building industry. which has been significantly affected by Brexit and COVID, as well as general inflation and supply issues. And there is potential that these will have significant implications for final costings. It is difficult to assess the impact of this, but this is a situation that needs to be reviewed once tenders have been received. The Cyclopath and Mails Road, another issue that has come to the fore in the past few months that have been raised with me by a number of councillors and members of the public, has been the discussions that have been taking part in the community on social media and elsewhere in relation to the debates that have surfaced concerning the Cyclopath development along Mails Road. While this initiative is not one provided by MCC, and ultimately MCC has limited influence on its progress, the amount of interest that this has caused with local residents and the amount of concerns it has generated, I think means that as a community council, which seeks to represent the interests of the local community, we should at least use the community council as a forum for a full and frank airing of these perspectives between the relevant parties. I am therefore proposing that following this full council meeting, that within the next 2 weeks, we arrange a special meeting where we invite all the relevant stakeholders, including representatives of the City and County of Swansea, to explore and discuss all the various concerns and potential options. Although I am mindful that they will probably be unlikely to arrive at an ideal solution that will keep all parties happy, as I have previously outlined, this is not an MCC proposal or funded initiative. I think providing the opportunity for the various stakeholders to express the opinions could potentially assist in avoiding any misunderstandings or misinformation. And particularly on that last point in relation to the mails, I'm really throwing this open to council to see what people's point of view is and perspective on that. Sarah?
Yeah, I was confronted by a parent today who was quite angry because they thought that MCC were against the Cyclopath. And I had to tell them we didn't have that view, that we weren't holding that view. And there's been a lot of positive stuff about the Cyclopath, but I haven't heard any negative. So it's interesting you're saying all this negative stuff's coming about.
No, I'm sorry, Sarah, if you got that impression. That is not the impression I got at all, because I have had exactly the same contact as well, where people have contacted me and said, you know, what is MCC's position on this? And as we know, we haven't got an official position on this.
Exactly.
And you know, exactly as you sort of said, I have been contacted by a member of the public who sort of said, MCC are against the Cyclopath. And I said, no, it's not the case at all. And that is why I am proposing this, is I think this might be an opportunity for us to clear up any misunderstandings in relation to this, because as I sort of said, this is not an MCC initiative. And also it is something that we have not discussed formally previously. We have not formulated a perspective one way or the other. So, and also, as I sort of said, it is not really an MCC initiative. But anyway, if I go to Ian next, please. Ian Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, all I can say is about time. I think it's absolutely appalling that this matter hasn't been raised by Community Council. The impact that it's been on the residents of Mails and other areas is quite extraordinary. You know, the road is downright dangerous now. You know, there was an island for people to take refuge at Green Close if they wanted to go over to Klein Park. Well, just on a whim of City Council, that's been removed, and they're expecting people now to run across the road rather than get knocked down. Not everyone is able to run across a road, You know, we hear so much at council these days, and quite rightly so, about those non-ambulant people. So I think it's about time we discuss this matter in Wales.
Okay, Steve, did you want to come in on a particular point or something?
Yeah, just a point of, look, as your clerk, this is just my opinion. You put this on your report and you're suggesting that you have a special meeting in 2 weeks, that you can't decide anything tonight. I suggest that you just take a sounding and people who seem supportive of having that meeting, that we move on to the next item.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, but I do think I am hoping that we won't go around the tables too much on this, but I am hoping to take a sounding. This is why I wanted to throw it open to council.
But what's in danger of happening, Martin, is that all the arguments will come out and you'll spend half an hour discussing the matter, and there's nothing you can do tonight to decide it. That's my observation.
Okay, well, if I just ask for Rebecca and Louise then to give us their point.
What about me?
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Look, you haven't seen my hand up because I can't do
Okay,
it.
I will go around and give everybody one opportunity to speak. But as I sort of said, please don't go over the particular arguments. If you could just really broach whether you think it is a good idea for us as a community council to discuss it. So Rebecca Fogarty.
Thanks. Yeah, so on that specific point, I would only be in favour of a public meeting if we can secure representation from city and county. The reason being that there is, this isn't a whim, as Councillor Scott's just put it. A lot of design work has gone into this, and I think until we can understand the reasoning behind that, the scheme has been reviewed by Welsh Government as well. So until we can actually get the facts around why it's being done the way it's being done, I don't see how we can have an informed decision, and we certainly can't come to an informed position, which is the only thing we can do, is have a position. We can't actually, as you say, influence the project any other way. So I think it's important that we do that in an informed way.
Thank you very much for that. Louise?
Yeah, given the word community is in the title for Mumbles Community Council, this does affect the community. And basically, I am absolutely astounded that we've come to this place to actually have this as an agenda. The male's pupils cannot cross the road. And Rebecca, you signed a letter as a governor to the council. You endorsed it for a review. So let's be honest about this. I totally agree. We should have a meeting in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda?
Yes. Well, can you hear me? Am I switched
Yes,
on?
we can hear you, Linda.
I could do a PhD on this. I mean, there is so much.
Don't do it.
There is so much that I could say and I won't say. People think that I have done nothing about this. Some people think that I've done nothing about this scheme. I have had 2 years of sleepless nights about it. I had 48 emails which I replied to in one weekend. All I can say is, if you're saying that people are for it, I haven't had any emails or letters or phone calls with people for it. I have had one person saying that he has just, that he's amazed I haven't had anything. One person recently has just said that they're for it. The cyclists, I spent 3 weekends interviewing cyclists. Not one cyclist wanted it because the parents said it was too dangerous. The fast cyclists said they will use the road. I'm not going to say any more other than I'm amazed you think people are for it. There we are. That's it.
Oh, okay, Richard? You're on mute, Richard. You're on mute.
As Steve said and you said, we should move on to the next agenda item because this could go on forever. And when we have the meeting, I think we need to allow about 3 hours, in all honesty.
But saying that, Richard, would you think that a meeting for us to have would be a useful or a not useful thing?
Useful, providing we have all the stakeholders there. Otherwise, there'll be just stakeholders from one side, while, well, there are issues there, but there's also good points about having a cyclopath. But what we do in this country is take a good idea, like they have fantastic cyclopaths in Europe. We sort of Britishize the idea and end up with something slightly different. But let's have all stakeholders, as Councillor Fogarty said.
Okay, good point. Carrie, and then Will.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is I agree entirely with Councillor Fogarty. If we don't have the relevant people from city and county and to have all stakeholders on both sides of the argument there, then it would be a waste of time.
Will.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think we obviously need a position as a council. In principle, I'm very for you know, the cycle path. However, the implementation of it does leave some serious questions. You know, I've seen some of the documentation that's gone around, and there is some serious risks that need addressing with it. However, I'm not a road safety expert, so that's just my opinion. But the council, I think, does very much need an opinion on it. I think Swansea Council should definitely be invited to the meeting. However, if they decide not to send someone, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't not have the meeting, because the council should have a position. We should definitely invite them, and the ideal is that they you know, the road safety expert or someone turns up, but we shouldn't not have the meeting just because they haven't sent representation. So yes, I'm in favour of the meeting.
Okay, Pam.
Are we able to affect any change whatsoever? Whatever decision we come to, will we be able to change anything, or is it already a done deal? So why, not why are we having the meeting, so at the outcome of the meeting, whatever it is, will it matter anyway?
Well, like as I said in the original introduction, and like as I sort of said in my chair's report, ultimately this isn't an MCC initiative. It's not an MCC funded initiative. So ultimately, I suppose no, but at the same time, we could say the same thing about planning. But we are interested partners, and I think that's what a number of councillors around this screen are saying. So we could have a point of view. So ultimately, no, you know, we could say whatever we want one way or the other, and ultimately we can be completely and utterly ignored because it's out of our hands.
But with respect, Martin, with planning, it's an action that's going to take place, and with the Cyclopath, it has already taken place.
Well, yes, but it's again, it's how it's implemented, isn't it? Because you know, one of the discussions there is at the moment is maybe changes to the way that it is. Can I just bring Robin? Look, I tell you what, I'm not going to go around everybody a second time because people are just going to restate their statements. I'm just trying to get a gauge where we are at the moment in relation to whether this would be a worthwhile exercise. I'm getting the impression that most people want a discussion around it, but there is this concern about whether we're going to have all the interested parties there. Rob?
I agree there should be a public meeting on this. Mumbles Community Council should have a view on this, but I also agree that unless we have representation from city and county, it's likely to turn into a kangaroo court. So I think that we need to have their representation there.
Thank you. Okay, so unless there's anybody who hasn't spoken before.
It's just a correction, Martin.
Okay, Rebecca, go on, because you were implicated on something else. Go on.
Yeah, so the letter that Louise referred to was sent from the Chair of Governors. I was CC'd to that letter, didn't sign it myself. And the reason I was CC'd to it is because some of the issues around Males Green in particular are going to be discussed at Community and Social Development Committee next week.
Okay, just a point of clarity there. So, okay, if we could just thank you for that. And this is something I think I will need to take back and discuss further with probably the clerk and the vice chair as well, and decide how we take this issue forward. Okay, so if we move on to the financial report, excuse me while I go and switch the light on.
Yeah, Chair, shall I take this?
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm just going to go and switch the light on because I can't see it.
Yeah, councillors will have read the RFO's report. Under item 1, he lists electronic payments for approval. Are there any questions on those that you need to ask?
I can see Rob and Connie got their hands up, but I don't know whether they've left them up from before. I think Connie's left it up.
Apologies. I do have a question, but it's not about that particular bit.
Okay, what we're doing, Martin, was just taking questions on the payments first.
Okay, so any particular questions on the payments?
Apologies, I hadn't clocked that my reimbursement of my expenses is on that list of payments. So there's another prejudicial interest, and so I will take myself out of this discussion.
If it's a prejudicial interest, then we should.
You can
Have you
kick
got
me
any
out
questions
momentarily
on the
if you
rest
like.
of the report. Otherwise, I think I need to send you out.
Okay.
It's only on that one bit, isn't it? So
Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, I need to just put you in. Unless you've got any questions on the rest of it, I'll just put you in the
oh, I see.
meeting room.
Yes.
2 seconds.
Kick
which
me
is
out momentarily.
You leaving the
On the
meeting.
naughty step, gone.
Yeah, off I go.
Make sure I get the right Rebecca.
She's still here. Oh, there we are.
She should
Oh,
be
she
in
gone
the
now.
meeting room now. There we are. Yeah. So if there's no questions on that, are there any comments on the rest of the report?
This is just a factual question I made, I think, for Martin, actually. I just noticed that under income, the check from the co-op is not listed. I just wanted to check, Martin, that you've forgotten to give it to Paul. Oh dear.
I give it to Paul. I'll check with Paul, but I definitely give it to Paul.
Oh, okay.
When was it? Anyway, I give it to him a few days after reading. I haven't put it in my pocket, I promise.
No, I've just noticed that it's not there, so I was concerned that it's got lost sort of between people somewhere.
Fair point, and I think maybe I should check it with Paul, but I definitely give it to Paul. I went down specifically to give it to Paul, to be honest. No problem.
Okay, yeah. So the chair, the formal, if everyone else is happy, then the formal proposal from RRFO is that the electronic payments be retrospectively approved and the rest of the report be noted.
Yeah, all look in favour of that. Okay.
Okay, I'll let Rebecca back into the meeting, chair, before you recommence.
There she is, back in the room. Okay, is there anything else on that now then, Steve?
No, it's on to item 7.
Item 7, appointment of committees. To appoint Connie, Townsend, Jones to Cultural, Tourism and Communication.
Yeah, the other thing, Chair, is anyone else wishing to join any of the committees that, we talked about third place preferences. There are a few vacancies.
Yeah. So if there is anybody, could you let Steve know and we can coordinate that? But
I'm calling for it tonight, Chair, because they could be nominated tonight and added to with Carrie for approval tonight.
So is there anybody, any third committee you want to join? You speak now or forever hold your peace. Ian, have you got something to say?
Yes, thank you, Chair. When is the subcommittee of planning to be decided? Is it tonight? Are we taking names tonight?
Chair, that's one of the ones that I will be sending a list around that I referred to earlier in as part of my report. Because council doesn't need to appoint subcommittees, they're appointed by the committee. So as long as the names come through before the next environmental committee meeting, at that meeting, that the planning committee can be formally.
Well, with all due respect, when is the next environmental committee meeting?
It's the 3rd Wednesday. So is it a week tomorrow? Or is it the week after? Yeah, a week tomorrow.
You know, we
No.
haven't had a planning meeting since June. It's absolutely ridiculous, this is.
Sorry,
know,
I thought there
I
was
raised-
a held
I
one.
raised the matter at environmental, and it was bounced then by Councillor Jones to it should be dealt with at full council. And we're still no further forward. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, we did have a meeting and the group made suggestions, which I put forward on behalf of the council, which I'm entitled to do, and council have already voted that Paul and I can do that. So there has been, you know, those responses that we discussed. They have gone forward to Swansea Council now. And as you know, we're meeting in Monday week, aren't we?
Yeah, next environmental committee is the 25th.
Well, you know, there are some very contentious planning applications that have recently been dealt with, and one of which was the Oyster Bar. And it's come to my note today that that application has been granted and subject to certain conditions, and it's going to be a car-free development. Well, you tell me how we're going to police that. And it's the same sort of application is actually being made with Broadview, a car-free development. And instead of having an undercroft for parking, they're putting another apartment in there. And we're missing the boat here all the time. You know, Swansea are going ahead on these applications. There's a 106 agreement from the Oyster Bar to do with the Pelican crossing instead of the zebra crossing. You know, 20K is going in on that. You know, the developers buy in the city council.
Richard?
Yeah, on planning, I know we're behind with planning for various reasons, but we do actually have one planning meeting on Monday. Isn't that correct?
I thought so, yeah. Steve, could you confirm on that? I thought that was the case.
Yeah,
That's only if we've got a committee.
we agreed to meet every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To get over the
At the
backlog.
moment, it's not a formal committee, but it's two willing councillors who I take their recommendations and formally submit them on behalf of the council.
Yeah.
Which is a
Ian,
process
myself,
that we've agreed.
yeah.
And Ian is part of that group.
Yeah, as I am, yeah.
Yeah.
With Steve.
Okay. Pam?
Can we be very careful with phrases such as the developer is buying Swansea City Council, please?
Yeah.
Let's just be careful with what we say, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, so let's be careful, yeah.
Okay. Rebecca Singh? You're on mute, Rebecca Singh, but you're very animated.
I always am. You should have seen me this morning coming to the office. I woke everyone up. But yeah, I feel we should, phrases aside, but I get the feeling, and I think it's something we should be keeping an eye on the details. And I appreciate Ian does a lot of work there. But yeah, I'll be honest, because we've got to be careful, because Swansea City Centre, I know that's not our area, you know, is looking like more and more of a dump than normal. It's just awful. It's full of all these government-owned shiny things and then a wasteland. So I'll have to agree. That's
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, again, with these sort of political digs, can we please put a stop to it, Chair?
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry,
it's not a dig, it's an opinion.
No, hold on. Okay. So moving forward, Steve, can we agree that we will, as a matter of urgency, formulate the planning group to take forward, particularly this backlog which has occurred with the planning applications?
You've already agreed that. I checked.
Yeah.
Some time ago when Paul was dealing with the matter.
Yeah.
Obviously,
That's what I thought,
obviously the ideal scenario is, as Ian says, a full subcommittee is appointed, which then makes the recommendation.
Yeah, and we can get that sorted out now. Okay. Okay, so going back to point 07, have we agreed on this to appoint Connie Townsend Jones to Cultural Tourism and Communication?
Okay.
Okay, everything all right with that? Yeah. So moving on to point 9, and I think Rebecca Fogarty has got to come in, has got some contribution to make on this in relation to the Langley Bay tennis courts.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. So this proposal was put on the agenda from committee, obviously, because when full council agreed in May the proposal to add basketball and netball facilities to the third court at Langland, part of that sort of idea really was to implement the gate booking system so that we could monitor usage, and that would provide us with really useful data about who's using the courts and for what, and then that would help us with future decisions on investment in facilities, not only at Langland but also, you know, in other areas. We went ahead and had the meeting with the LTA, who said that their current policy, although this might have changed since, anyway, no, their current policy is that they need 3 courts exclusively for tennis, and before they will fund the gate, which obviously full council has agreed that we will add in those 2 additional facilities. So the rationale was looking through our options to basically, yeah, what do we do about that? Do we pay for a gate? Do we defer the gate? You know, options basically. Since then, though, I've emailed all councillors yesterday, hopefully you've seen it, to say that Pam, as vice chair of the committee, and myself had a really informative meeting with Helen Doherty, who is the chair of Swansea Tennis and Squash Club down at Ashley Road. They have implemented the booking system without the gate, and actually that might mean that we can answer more questions than we thought we could ourselves. So there's a meeting on Thursday which I've organised, to which all councillors are really warmly invited, because we do need to do some sort of really detailed thinking now around the booking rules. So what are we going to charge? Who are we going to charge? How far in advance can you book? How many sessions can you book? And my suggestion is that we defer the decision on this proposal with the project manager until we've had that meeting with all councillors being able to give their view, because I think if we have that detailed conversation first, it may be that we can give some sort of firmer guiding principles to the project manager, or indeed work it all out ourselves, and that is likely to reduce the cost. So given that we've got that new information and we've got a meeting about this set up for Thursday, I'm going to suggest that we defer decision on the recommendation.
Okay, Will, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, firstly, as you all know, I'm very passionate about 3 courts remaining as tennis courts in Langland. As Rebecca said, I think it has been an opinion of full council to add those extra facilities, but you know, we can get a grant for a gate system as 3 tennis courts. So why don't we just go ahead and do that? Why don't we just go ahead, get the grant, put 3 really good tennis courts in? I mean, there's a grant application, or sorry, a funding proposal here for basketball on a different location somewhere else. There's other places we could put netball posts. There's other places we could put basketball rings, which would be far better suited. You know, we could propose today, for example, that we just take the LTA's offer, get the free gate system, get it implemented, they look after it, and let's move forward, rather than, you know, forcing basketball and netball onto this 3rd court. It should always go on the 4th court if we're going to do multi-purpose. And by putting all these multi-sports on the 3rd court, I firmly believe we are very, very unlikely to then have any bargaining chip with Swansea Council to give us that 4th court. We should not, you know, we shouldn't give up on that 4th court at all, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, Sarah Keaton.
Yeah, we're not forcing the basketball court. I don't understand why everything is so. It's always about tennis and bowls. It's not about sports that youngsters want to play. We've been asked so many times to put a basketball court somewhere in Mumbles. It's the only place to put it. It's acceptable there. They can use, the wheelchair users can use it there as well. I just feel as if we're trying to be bounced into because it suits them. 3 basketball. We could get another 3 tennis courts. We can get another tennis court when we find out about the 4th one. But at the moment, we've got 2 functioning tennis courts, but no basketball court or netball court. So I can't understand why it's so controversial.
Okay,
Thank you.
Louise.
Yeah, given that we're going to get funding from the Tennis Association, I just think it's a no-brainer. Just go ahead, put it back to tennis courts. That's what it should be. That's what it should remain as. Trying to put multi-sports, courts in there like basketball, it's not where it should be. Langland has always had a tennis court, and that's what it should be. That's my personal opinion, and I don't think it should change. So thank you very much.
Sorry, point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
So as I said in committee, we are revisiting a decision here that's already been taken by full council. The proposal to put the additional facilities on Court 3 was agreed in May of this year, and we can't overturn that decision. So that's the discussion we're having now, I think.
Yeah. Point of order on the point of order. You can, because this is full council, and you are exactly able to do that right now. You can overturn it now. If we chose to. This is a full council meeting and this is the agenda.
You can't revisit decisions within 6 months of having taken them.
6 months. Hold on.
You can if new information has come to head, can't you?
What new information?
Chair, just
Yeah, I was just going to say, can I bring the clerk in on this to clarify?
This is a bit of a precursor to what's going to happen later. If you suspend standing orders, if you agree that there's new information available to you that wasn't available when the first decision was made, you can revisit decisions within the 6 month period by suspending standing orders.
Okay.
The new information, Chair, being the fact that at the time of the decision made,
we didn't know about
the 3 court limit, yeah, and that is obviously crucial to the funding of it.
Okay. Ian, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. 2 points I'd like to make, please. And I had read the email from Rebecca and about the meeting with Councillor Erasmus at the other tennis courts. Yes, they may be operating a scheme without gates. However, one of the important factors I've always stressed is that we've invested about £80,000 and there's no security to the courts whatsoever. So, the fact that there's going to be no gates there, who's going to pay for the damage to the tennis courts? That's the whole point of having a secure system. And the other thing, I think it's a classic example here of Labour councillors trying to dominate an agenda.
Oh,
there's political bias.
Please.
Can you stop that?
Please,
yeah,
Pam,
can you
let Ian make his point.
Thank you. It's a classic case of political bias here. Now,
absolutely,
we've been trying to get the Langland tennis courts completed since 2017, and there's been hurdle after hurdle. If it hasn't been Labour councillors on the MCC, it's been Swansea City Council, diving in and moving the goalposts all the time. It's just being hijacked, no matter what we try and do. Now, Councillor Keaton has mentioned yet again, as she did at the coastal presentation, about young people being unable to have a basketball hoop. There was a consultant organised a Survey Monkey survey, and the outcome of that survey was in favour of the tennis remaining at Oystermouth. Not a basketball hoop, not hockey,
please,
not netball. So get your facts right. People want tennis.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Carrie?
Yeah, we have a meeting which Rebecca has very kindly organised on Thursday to be able to discuss this all in detail. So can we just decide now that we will discuss all these points at a meeting on Thursday so that we can actually have all the facts in front of us? Otherwise, we're going to be here for an hour arguing about this because there is 101 items relevant to this, all of which will need to be discussed.
Okay, I will bring Rebecca Singh in and then I'm going to try and wrap this up. But anyway, Rebecca Singh, then I will bring Will in. Okay,
Thank
Rebecca
you.
Singh.
Okay, first off, I love basketball hoops, you know, because they're easy to install and you can play basketball pretty much anywhere. And it's more fun than netball, but that's me. But you can put both things on the same court. But on the grounds of everything that's been known so far, you know, 70% of me says just put the tennis courts in and just get that sorted because we're getting nowhere. So somewhere better than nowhere.
Okay.
But that's
okay. I will have Sarah, Pam, and Rebecca speak.
Right. Yeah. I'm absolutely the thing that went out for a start for Mumbles, basically, although we asked for it not to be tennis, was basically, would you like a tennis court, tennis court, tennis court, tennis court? So of course people came back with tennis courts. They didn't feel they were offered anything else. And we have 2 functioning tennis courts. We have to respond to the needs of other people, apart from people who play tennis and bowls in Mumbles. There has to be something else to offer. And people are asking us, and I know there's a bias towards tennis, but we've got to be strong and say, well, there are other sports. Yes, we love tennis. I've stood in the rain for so many different meetings, site visits, you know I have, to get the tennis courts up and running. And I'm delighted that they're used, but we have other sports. Thank you.
Okay. Pam and Rebecca Fogarty.
Just to point out that when we took this decision to make it a multi-sports use, we had done enormous consultation with the public to come to that decision, and it was a public consultation-led decision. I don't think this council has any right to overturn a public consultation-led decision just because we're the council and we can do it. It just makes a whole mockery of the whole consultation system and involving the community in the decisions you make if you're just going to turn it over. And we did know that it was 3 courts at the time when we made the decision.
Okay, Rebecca Fogarty, but I am thinking that maybe we need to have a particular meeting focused on this, which was what was suggested right at the very beginning.
Indeed, what I have organised. A step ahead, Martin. So again, another correction, I'm afraid, but the results from the consultation on Mumbles tennis came back almost even between a mugger and tennis, even in spite of the fact that there was, you know, quite a tennis-led consultation. So there is definitely demand for multi-use facilities. I just cannot see how we can possibly revisit all of these aspects in this discussion tonight in a sensible way, because the issue that Ian raised around security, you know, Ian, with respect, your solution is a gate, might not be my solution. The way we discussed a gate back in May was in connection to collecting data on usage. That's what there was consensus on. If we're going to revisit that, then there's a whole other, you know, there's a whole gamut of issues that we need to consider. So as I say, I've organised this meeting for Thursday. I'd love you all to come. Please bring snacks. It'll probably be long because there are lots and lots of minute details to discuss, and we've just got to bite the bullet and have those discussions, but probably not in a full council meeting. So that's why I suggested at the beginning that we defer and have this meeting on Thursday. Thanks.
Okay, Bill, can you be concise, please?
Yeah, sorry, let me just turn my phone off. Sorry, it's ringing. Sorry, never stops that thing. We've obviously, when everyone says we aren't providing, you know, basketball facilities, that there's something in the agenda tonight to fund a basketball court, you know, so that's a typical example of, a half court, you know, there's several places we could put half basketball courts, you know, so that is a facility that can be provided across the constituency, you know, so it's just will of people coming up with locations, really. I'd like to propose that we just go ahead with the LTA offer of a free gate system that they manage for us, and just propose that we do that now and just vote on that now.
Richard?
Clearly, there's some electioneering tonight. We've got a meeting just for this on Thursday, 2 days' time.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have any more conversation on this. We should move on. Otherwise, we're going to be here until 11 o'clock tonight.
Yeah. My feeling is on this, speaking as chair now, is that there is a meeting on this in 2 days' time. There are a number of things which have changed since we made the original decision. I do think that these could be considered at that meeting. And some sort of conclusion could come to that meeting. If that needs to come back to full council, well, so be it. We can arrange that. So that is my feeling, and my feeling is go to that meeting. As Rebecca says, it could be a long meeting, it could be a fractious meeting. This is the place to hammer things out. Everybody is invited to that meeting. It's not the case that certain people on particular groups or certain groups could be on it. Everybody can be invited to that meeting. It will be the place to thrash out all the different perspectives and all the different options. So my feeling is that is the best option. Saying that, Will has put forward that he wants to have put forward his proposal on the LTA thing. Can we accept that, Steve? Or
well, no, all you can do is make an amendment. So what Will needs to come up with is to amend the original resolution.
I'm sorry, Clark, but we had the information that he's using as the new information, which would give this. We had that at the time. It isn't new information that it takes 3 courts for that to work. We had that all the while. So I'm challenging the fact that it's new information. I don't think it is. We had it at the time.
Steve, what is your interpretation of that?
Well, personally, at the time of the meeting, and I did attend a lot of the meetings with the LTA, I wasn't aware that they needed 3 courts to provide the gate and the maintenance. Otherwise I might have pointed that out to you. But
yeah.
Sorry, Clark. Were you at Langland? Were you at that Langland meeting with the last one we had? Were you there? I don't think you were.
Pam, that meeting was after we made the decision, though.
Yeah, that's the point. It was after. That was afterwards. That's what I found out after discussing it with the LTA after that meeting. So, Chair, if you want to look at there's 2 things to do. Is first you take a vote on whether you want to suspend standing orders, and you can have a short debate on whether you think there's new information or not.
Oh, God.
And you want to do that, and then if you decide that you do want to suspend standing orders, then Will needs to put an amendment to the current resolution.
Okay, then. Well, I will put this to council. If we suspend standing orders, we will have the discussion now, or if we don't suspend standing orders, the discussion will be at the meeting on Thursday.
Okay.
So,
Chair, I think really the discussion, the discussion on standing orders, there's a merit to whether there's a reason that you can justify in standing orders. If you feel there is, even if you don't want to discuss it tonight, you should vote for that. And then when Will puts his amendment in, you vote that down. That's the way to proceed.
I think it's obvious that there is a merit, there's different information, so I can't really see how anyone can argue against that.
Well,
so
I would argue against
skip
it.
Yeah.
So my rationale for arguing against it is that it has to be new information that makes a substantive difference to the decision that we would have made. And actually, if the purpose of us having a gate at the time was to collect usage data, well, we now know we can do that with or without a gate. So the fact that the gate is not going to be free is not relevant information.
Do it with or without a gate. What do you mean? How would you collect data without a gate?
Well, so Pam and I, this is why we've got a meeting on Thursday. So we now know that you can implement Club Spark with or without a gate, and it works well. People can be encouraged to book anyway because they want to secure their spot and be able to have, you know, primary use of the spot at that time. And it will give us some data on what there is demand for in the area.
Yeah. I personally, I don't think. I mean, I know you. I know we're going into
Can we
detail.
get on with this? This is just endless. We're supposed to be making a decision.
Please, everybody calm down. I really think the best option here, people are getting fractious and everything. I really think that the best option here is to defer this to the meeting on Thursday.
Yeah.
I really do. You know, I know people will have different points of view, but that will give you the opportunity to get the point of view, if you're opposing points of view, aid in a more clear and open thing rather than it's getting quite fractious, which it is at the moment. So that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, look, let's do that, because we don't want to start an argument for the sake of it, but it is extremely frustrating that, other people's views are not heard, basically.
Okay.
What?
Please. Every councillor is entitled to their opinion, no matter how much you disagree with it or how bizarre you find it. All councillors are entitled to their opinion. So please don't throw your hands up, make expressions like that. That is not a professional way to do things. The professional way to do things is to listen to other people's opinions and then to argue against those opinions, okay? So all I'm sort of saying, it looks like the consensus here is we will go to the meeting on Thursday. All those in favour? Okay. Any against? Okay, that's carried, I would say. So if we can move on then to point 11, Scout Hut.
Oh, hang on. Grant. We've skipped 9 and 10 there.
Sorry, I got to admit, I've got all fractious myself now.
Can I speak to 9, Martin?
Yeah. No, it's 10, isn't it? Questions to...
No, 9.
No, 9, sorry, yes. Yeah, sorry. I have jumped, sorry.
That's okay. If I just a quick word on 9. So just to clarify that the facilities that's being proposed is a half court. So just say that because it is very distinct from what we're discussing at Langland. So for clarity, a half court. And as Will did point out, we have actually got money in the budget this year to have multiple sites. That was deliberate, and delighted to discover that this site is much cheaper than we had anticipated because the tarmac is already there. So there we are, proposal from committee.
Okay, anybody else want to speak on that?
I meant to add as well, West Cross councillors did do a quick consultation with residents and overwhelming support from local residents around Yalton Park, which was great to hear as well, because obviously it's going to be on their doorstep and we wouldn't want to be upsetting any of the local residents, but yeah, really supportive.
Okay, then.
Chair, can I just come in with further information? As Rebecca noticed, that the committee asked for it to be subject to your RFO confirming that Swansea Council procurement meets our needs. So he says he's happy with the recommendation. So just so that's further information that you need before you make your decision.
Okay, anybody else want to speak on that? In favour or against? If not, can we take to a vote that we accept this recommendation? All those in favour? Okay. Will, you wanted to come in and see your hands up?
No, I was voting with the screen off. That was my hand up to vote. Yeah, well, yeah, no,
okay.
Good. Happy to vote for it. Yeah.
Okay. So 10 questions. I've gone back on track now. 10 questions of chair to the Community and Social Development Committee. Any questions for the chair? Okay, if we move on to recommendations of the Finance and Compliance Committee, Scout grant application 19,578 for hall refurbishment. using funds from FC1 small and medium-sized grants. You will find all the paperwork in relation to the grant application in your meeting pack. Rebecca, did you want to speak to this?
Yeah, in Rebecca Child's absence. So the papers that you won't find in your agenda pack because they weren't available at the time are a business case, including SWOT analysis, evidence of 3 quotes having been sought and the quote that has ultimately been gone with, and proof of ownership of the building. Those have now come through, but they did only come through at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So the clerk has them, but I appreciate councillors haven't seen them. So basically the direction from Finance and Compliance Committee was that Rebecca Child and I, Rebecca Child as chair of committee and myself as former chair of the committee that was dealing with this last year, have that meeting with Steve Hardy to reassure ourselves that they would meet the criteria under the large grants policy. Now that if you put last year's grant and this year's grant together, you get a large grant. We are eminently satisfied. The business case that's come through is very encouraging. And what I thought was particularly encouraging is that the income that the hall currently receives through subs from Beavers and Cubs already meets the costs of that they incur. So the project is to increase usage, and that will only increase income, if you like. So there's almost no risk, although obviously there's never no risk, but almost no risk that they will be coming back to us for revenue funding, which is obviously what we want to reassure ourselves about. So I'm sure the clerk can circulate all that paperwork after the meeting, but I would hope that you take my reassurance as directed by committee that it is all there. All the I's have been dotted and T's crossed.
Yeah, I got, when I looked at the application, I thought it was pretty clear even without all that, to be honest, pretty good even without all that. But anyway, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This is an enormous sum of money. I'm quite staggered by it, actually. You know, we're giving this to a great organisation, I have to say. But you know, where does one end? A grant was given to the organisation last year, if not the year before. I think their projected project is about 75,000. Is it intended that we're going to have to pay most of that?
Rebecca, do you want to come back on that?
So they have provided a breakdown of additional funding that they've sought from other sources. So in answer to your question, Ian, no, we're not expected to pay 75,000. I think the total that they intend to apply to us for over the course of 3 years. So 1 grant last year, this one in front of us right now, and an additional grant coming next year. Although, of course, we are not under obligation to accept a future grant just because we've accepted this one. I think the total is something like 40 to 45,000, somewhere in the middle there. So they have applied to the lottery and other sources for the additional funding, and have put in some of their own resources as well.
Yeah,
you're right though, it is a huge modernisation. I think one we should welcome.
Yeah.
Well, yes. I think it's marvellous that you know, we should have these different facilities, but there are a number of community venues, not discounting the fact that we have the Austrian Hall, and yet we don't seem to be investing any money in that. When it came to the Newton Village Hall, it was up to the constituents in the Newton, Langland, Caswell area to raise the funds, you know, to pay for all of that. And it was a splendid effort, but, you know, I struggle with this one, I really do. I believe in the Cubs and Guides and the Brownies and the Scouts and all the rest of it. I think splendid idea. It's not that long ago we did something for the Scout Hall in West Cross. But that seems to have gone a bit quiet as well. I don't know, I struggle with this sum of money being paid, actually.
Okay. Rebecca, did you want to just answer his questions, then I'll bring Sarah in?
Yeah, thanks. So firstly, I would just point out that the purpose of this modernisation project is to expand the usage beyond Scouts and Guides. So those are obviously really admirable organisations, but also wanting to bring in, he mentioned Mind Cymru, for example, and other community users. So I don't know whether that helps in your decision making, Ian, but it would be wider community use rather than just Scouts and Guides. And then in answer to because this issue around we've got other community facilities and, you know, who decides who gets the money. So I started a piece of work and I'll be handing it over to Finance and Compliance in the near future around sort of improving our grants application process, because in the example of Newton Village Hall, they're just as eligible to apply for a grant of this nature as the Scout Hall is, but there is an imbalance in who knows about the applications process and what money's available and what they can apply for. So that is an issue that we need to address, and it's, you know, work that's ongoing, and we're hoping to kind of put a little advert in the upcoming newsletter. So because I personally, and I'm sure full council would agree, want more and more diverse applications to our grants, and we want to see improvements across the patch, not just you know, in specific areas, but there's often an underspend, and it's often because people don't realise the money's there for them to apply for.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, I've looked through it myself and it is quite a good, I mean, it's based in Newton again, so it's always basically Newton Mumbles, but we're not going to end up in ad hoc with it, where we're constantly paying out like the sort of Underhill situation, because it sounds like you've got it in hand, Rebecca. Yeah.
Well, the Scout Association have it in hand.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah. Okay.
Okay, Louise.
Yeah. I don't know really too much about these projects. I've not given any information. Where is this shared on the? Because there's a lot of going on, but I've had no sight of these documents.
They're on the meeting pack.
Right. And what about before? All of the, you know, a lot of the projects that have been talked about, we don't seem to have that much information shared around. You know, there's the same old faces, same old names that get involved, but, you know, this is a full committee and I just don't think we're getting sight of a lot of things that are going through the council. That's just my observation.
Okay, well, we can
Thank you.
address that, but
Thank you.
as I should have said, these things should come to the full council and they should be available. Will, are you wanting to say something, or have you just got your hand up?
No, it's not always. I'm just got my hand up. Yeah, no, I do want to say something. Yeah, no, I think, you know, as long as there's a long-term strategy in place to manage the building, which there is, they own the freehold, and as long as they're making active steps to, you know, increase the usage of the building, then, you know, I think it's a good thing for the area and has my support.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, Connie?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. This isn't in Newton. It's the Scout Hall in the Grove, which is the little back road off Queen's Road. So it's actually right in the middle of Mumbles.
Okay. Right, so before we go to that, I would just like to put my 4 penneth worth in. I do take point that this is often something that we do struggle with in relation to capacity for different groupings that we've got in relation to applying to funding for us. I think Rebecca alluded to the fact that this is a group that knew that the funding was there and had the capacity to apply for it. And then sometimes we've got other groups who may be more deserving, but they need a bit of support and a bit of encouragement in getting that funding together. You know, I've seen this with some of the other funding issues that have come about. It's not a perfect world. I don't think we're ever going to be able to solve that completely and utterly, but it's nice to know that Rebecca is mindful of this and is trying to put something together so that we can proactively maybe approach groups in the area who might be struggling for funding, to help them and support them putting into funding for us. And I do take on board Louise's point as well, that maybe we need to think about better sharing of information and background of information, because I really don't want anybody to feel that they're sort of excluded in any of these proceedings. Pam?
2 things. To add on to that, some people in West Cross were trying to fill in the grants form. we just gave up in the end because there are 33 questions. There's no facility on the grant process to save what you've done. You've got to do the whole lot in one go. So while you're looking at that, could you look again at the grant form itself? I've had to ask for a printed list of the 33 questions so they can see them all in advance and get them all sorted out. The person applying is in their late 70s, 80s. So the grant form itself and filling that in is causing problems.
Yeah.
And as to Louise saying she hasn't had sight of things, I think Louise is on the community and social committee, and all of this has come before that, and all the documentation has gone before community and social as well. But the grant form itself really does need to be looked at, and whichever person or group needs to do that, could you consider that, please? Because at the moment it's just too difficult to fill in.
No,
Yeah, I have asked for that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Carrie, I'm, I haven't spoken much tonight. I don't get a lot of emails. I don't get a lot of information. So, I think you're wrong, Pam. Thank you.
Okay, we won't go over old ground in relation to this, but in relation to the form, that was the point I was making right at the very beginning of this meeting, where I've helped Dennis at Ripples, just pointing him towards the form and giving him a bit of moral encouragement more than anything, and filling the form in, because it's so blinking daunting. And let's be honest, the guy, I'm sure you all know Dennis, he's a lovely guy and all that, but he's got a business to run and sort of stuff like that. And he's doing this on top of his business, out of the goodness of his heart in a lot of ways. So when he's confronted with a daunting form like that, to be honest, I think the first time I went down to see him, he was like, oh, I just can't be doing with this. I can't be doing with this. And, I did have to give him a bit of, hand holding and encouragement. So I do think that's a very valid point and something we need to bear in mind. Rebecca?
So I'd just like to remind everybody that about 3 months ago, I did write to all councillors saying that I was looking into the grants process and how we market it. And I still do welcome views on how we can improve the process. But yes, the form is in scope. I think Steve has now worked out how to make it so that you can save it, which is a massive improvement. But we are, Steve and I have had conversations about, can we make a much shorter form if you're only applying for 500 quid, for example? Can we make sure that it's obvious that if you're applying for a large grant, to get in touch with us in advance and it be a more strategic partnership style conversation rather than fill in a form and send it into the ether? So all of these things are being discussed. But as I say, I wrote to everybody 3 months ago. I would love for you to, put your thoughts in an email back, please.
Okay, Richard, did you want to come in?
Yeah, and I bore you stiff now, I'm afraid. Yeah, as a former Boy Scout and Cub, I remember the motto, who dares wins, or was it be prepared, something like that? One or the other. Baden Powell, when he started at the Cubs and Scouts, it was to get youngsters from rich backgrounds, from poor backgrounds, working together. Because as he said, when they come together, they realise there's no difference between the two. 100 years, just over 100 years later, the gap between those two groups has got greater. Let's support the Scouts. Let's get this done.
Okay, thanks for that, Richard. Any other points? If not, can we just take it to the vote, please? All those in favour of using these funds for the Scout Hut? Thank you all. That's in favour, I would say. Yep. So that's been passed. So the next one is Ripples Ice Cream Parlour grant application, £1,600 to cover the cost of public bike repair stand. See the applications. Anybody want to come in on this, Will Thomas? No.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, sorry, just delayed with the buttons there. Yeah, great idea. Again, it's helpful to get people on bikes, and it's a good proposal. There is one further down at the Secret that's right on the prom, and I think when someone's fixing their bike, they are on the prom. So when they fit it, if they could maybe set it back a couple of meters or put it somewhere that they just think about that it doesn't actually cause a collision, basically, because I think the one that's placed at the Secret is in a place that it probably could have been put somewhere better, basically. So that's my only comment.
That's a very, very good point, Will. I think something to bear in mind. But I do know that they have got some space, one to the right of Ripples, and he's even got some covered space to the left of Ripples, which I think he would be more than happy to use. But I think we can bring this up with Dennis. Sarah, did you want to say something?
Actually, Will said it, as long as it's positioned in the right place.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Big thumbs up though.
There we go. So if there's no further ado with that, can we go to the vote on that? All those in favour of the grant application? Okay, so that's passed. So the Red Community Project Grant application. Rebecca, are you going to talk to this or no?
Can do, yeah.
I don't know much about this one.
Yeah, so about, or just before I became a councillor, I think, so 4 years ago, the Community Council actually approached Red Community Project to see whether they would be interested in setting up a youth club in West Cross. We know there's demand for one because it comes up frequently in conversations with residents. At that time, they did not have capacity. They now do, which I think is great news. And Dan from the Red Community Project actually came to the Finance and Compliance meeting and was able to answer some of the queries that councillors had to our satisfaction. So I think there was consensus really that this is a project that we would have liked to have seen run in for some time, and fantastic news that it is getting off the ground now.
Okay, thank you for that. Will Thomas? Is he just keeping us waiting with his buttons again? Will Thomas? No. Sarah Keaton? You're on mute, Sarah. On mute.
Sorry, I should have a mug. No, it's something we've been waiting for so long, so it's absolutely brilliant because it's something parents keep asking for, and that's great. Great, big thumbs up.
Okay, thank you. Louise Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. There's a lot of problems in West Cross with the children in the parks. They've got nowhere to go. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay then, so if there's no further ado on that, can I put this straight to the vote then? All those in favour? Right, so, questions to the Chair of Finance and Compliance Committee, but they're not here. Are there any particular questions? Who's the Vice Chair?
Me.
Oh, okay.
I say I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Okay. So are there any questions? No. So we go on to point 15 now. Green Underhill. Now we've got an issue with this one because this one was discussed at the last committee meeting and it wasn't passed. So if we're going to discuss it again, the feeling was when it was brought up in committee, as I understand it, is that things that when it was decided not to pass it, some other information has come to light which we didn't know at that time. So before we can discuss this, we've got to have a discussion as to whether we are going to suspend standing orders or not, or whether there has been a change of information since that time. So has anybody got anything to contribute on this or any points of view? Pam?
I thought it was because local community groups had got in touch to say that they fully approved of the, I'm not an environment to, of the under the ground system, and that their opinion after consultation is what has changed things. Is that true? I'm not sure, but I think that's what it is.
No, I don't think that's the case. Carrie, did you want to come in? Or Steve, do you want to come in and clarify it?
Yeah, what it was is that I understand, unfortunately I wasn't at the last meeting, that the meeting was told that the tenders had already gone out and therefore it was too late to actually include anything additional in. This turned out not to be the case. In fact, the tenders hadn't gone out and in fact only went out 3 weeks later. So the decision was made on information that wasn't actually true.
Anybody else? Sarah?
Yeah, I think Rebecca, Councillor Rebecca Fogarty has something more to say, because I think when you peruse the actual paperwork for the tender, they say that they have to have as much green credentials they possibly can. So I think they will perhaps end up doing the best for the build. That's what we're hoping for anyway. I think Rebecca knows more.
You want me to come in there, Martin?
Yep, please do.
Well, the thing is, I'm a little bit unsure of how to proceed, and I will, because I think we're getting on to discussing the actual proposal. Steve, could you just clarify this? Because if we're discussing the build, or can we bring this in as part of this discussion as to whether to suspend standing orders?
No, the discussion on standing orders is discrete. It's
Yeah,
whether
that's what I
there's
thought.
new information, and you have to quickly argue that. Don't need to be along, and then you take a vote on that, and then you proceed according to that vote.
That's what I thought. So the point is that when the original vote was held, the meeting was told that the tenders had gone out, when in fact at the time the tenders hadn't gone out. And the tenders have gone out in the intervening period of time, and they're doing on the 5th of March. So there was some erroneous information. So on that ground, are we happy to suspend the standing orders and go back to discuss the topic?
Can I ask the clerk for a point of clarification?
Yes, certainly, because this is very confusing.
So I would argue that things happened as Martin just described. So we had the discussion last month on the basis of inaccurate information. However, revisiting it now is a bit of a waste of time because the tenders have now gone out. So if I vote not to suspend standing orders on the basis that I don't think it's worth us discussing it again, I don't want that to make it sound like I don't agree that the accurate information we had last time was inaccurate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, that's
so which way should I vote?
That's why it's a discrete vote, because you're not voting on the merits. You're not even discussing the merits of the resolution. You're just discussing whether you feel you can suspend standing orders or not.
Right, so on the basis that the information we had last month was inaccurate, I should vote to suspend standing orders.
Yeah,
that's how I understand it.
Yeah.
And then I should vote to not have the proposal.
Yeah.
Well, the proposal can't be discussed unless you suspend standing orders.
Yeah, don't have it.
But
Ian, did you want to come in?
Sorry,
Very
Chair, can I
confusing.
finish my point?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, my understanding is that there's 2 points being made, that when the decision was made, the tender hadn't gone out as was told. But secondly, now that it's gone out, it includes a strong environmental element, which you might then consider, well, then you are legitimate to discuss the thing because you know that element is in that tender. So the matter hasn't been closed off and all avenues shut down. So that's my understanding of the case anyway.
Yeah. Ian?
Yes. Here we have another consultant. I'm getting a bit tired of these consultant things coming in. Nobody ever pays any heed to them.
Ian, I'm sorry to stop you, but you're jumping the gun there. I know what you're saying, it's very confusing, but you were going into the next discussion. We just got to have the discussion. This is just Alice in Wonderland mentality that's going on here. But so shall we just have the vote that we suspend the standing orders? All those in favour of suspending the standing orders, because there was Okay, so now we suspend the standing orders, then we get on to the substantive point. Ian, do you want to make your point again? Sorry.
Yeah, my point is we seem to be forever having to go to a consultant. And every time we do this, it costs money. And every time they supply us with a report, the report is totally ignored. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, it's not long since we had one from Alan Thomas. And, you know, we've just made a load of new committees, and the majority of the chairs and vice chairs on those committees are Labour. So again, it's political bias, and Alan Thomas has been appointed and paid to look into that, and it's totally ignored. Now, the other thing, you know, when we talk about greening Underhill, you know, planning play an important role in any new development. Planning look at environmental issues, and they also look at the biodiversity. So I don't see why we have to have, you know, Carrie coming on through with this greening thing all the time. It's already there with City. We don't need to go out to another consultant. There are people paid a damn good salary at City. We don't have to go paying consultants again.
Okay, thank you for that. Connie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, if I could just clarify what this is, which is irrelevant to the planning process. The planning process does not look at you know, the best possible sustainability. It doesn't look at the costs of the cost savings of different types of heating systems. That's completely irrelevant. What we are looking at, excuse me, Ian, I'm speaking.
Ian, let her finish, please.
What we are suggesting is, even though the tenders have gone out, that in order to be able to make informed decisions around the tenders and with regard to the sustainability considerations, that maybe the first one is less important as the tenders have gone out, but part two is that the MCC consultant, that we actually produce that costed list of actions to be considered, so that we ask that consultant to actually do a very clear cost analysis of how much it would cost for ground source heat pumps against how much it would cost for conventional systems. Also, what the likely running costs and cost savings would be, because obviously the key point about the ground source heat pump is it's more expensive to install, but in the long term, which is what matters, it's a huge saving. And with the current position with gas prices, surely the most important thing we should be looking at is actually making sure that those running costs don't become untenable, and that MCA are coming back to MCC saying, we haven't got enough money to pay the gas bill, please can you pay it for us?
Okay, Will Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify, Steve, is it recording and when suspending orders are?
Yeah.
When you suspended standing orders.
Yeah, recording continues, yes.
Okay, cool. Just double checking. Firstly, I just, you know, I want to know what the motivation really is for, you know, putting this forward, because we haven't got the budget. I mean, if for example, there is the community council want to stump up, let's say 400 or 500 grand on top for solar and ground source heat pumps and things like that afterwards.
That's rubbish.
You know, excuse me, Carrie.
Please, Carrie, let Will speak in.
Carrie, you just had a go at Ian for interrupting you, and now you did exactly the same. You know, what's it?
Please,
you know,
a bit of decorum from councillors, please.
So, you know, where's the motivation coming from? And I think we have to have an end goal, and I think it was Councillor Child said last time, is it actually going to change anything? You know, are we going to have a piece of paper that's just going to be, you know, we've paid for a consultant, we've got a piece of paper that says we're going to need this, you know, what are we going to do with that? So, you know, I think that was one of the reasons that everyone sort of agreed that, you know, it was thing. So the other thing is the legal agreement that we've signed with the MCA, that no matter what we say after we have this consultant's report, they don't have to accept that either, because we've signed a legal agreement with them already to agree X amount of funds, right? So, and the other part of that is who pays for MCA's sort of consultation on their end to interpret the report. You know, I mean, I don't think any of them are experts in this field. So if we have a report and we give it to them, you know, what do they do with that? Have we got funds for a consultant for them to interpret that and advise them? You know, so that's something that also needs to be thought about. So, you know, I think we've obviously got building regs, and Welsh Government are, you know, pretty good when it comes to environmental building regulations. So, you know, they're all in place already. I think, you know, it's well insulated. It is a good building. So, you know, I think this is just either going to jack up the costs unnecessarily, or it's going to put us in a really awkward place where, yeah, it's great to have these things, but who the hell's going to pay for it? And that just looks embarrassing on the council, really. So that's my my points for now.
Richard?
I can remember some time ago when we had a meeting and it was put to the vote, Councillor Townsend Jones raised the green issues, but she was voted against at the time. I was one of the people, so we could get until voted through. However, since then, Mr. Putin controlling the gas supply and putting the price up and everything has changed things considerably. So I think we do need to look at it. Whether or not we do it via consultants is nothing, but this time I support Councillor Townsend Jones because the price of gas is astronomical. Pay more money now could save a lot of money in the long run.
Okay, Rebecca.
Thanks, Martin. If I could start by just respectfully asking Councillor Thomas to be mindful of the impact of flippant comments like 400,000 or 500,000 for solar panels, because indeed it was a flippant comment last month that means that we are revisiting this discussion this month. I appreciate that only Martin or Will have seen it to read, but wasn't at the last joint working group meeting. But Martin and I have been through an update from the MCA on the process so far, and that does include quite a lot of detail about the environmental considerations. I'm conscious that other councillors haven't seen that yet, but it will be circulated, you know, soon. I'm sure we were just agreeing some minor amendments. So I suppose I'm encouraged by that, and also by the report that we received from MCA at that meeting. You know, things like they'd been back and forth on building regs about the gas boiler, and they really didn't want to put a gas boiler in, and then the prices have gone up even further, and now they really don't want to put a gas boiler in. So they are exploring, you know, how they can. I think they've got some sort of discretion now, so that they can perhaps change that, or that's it. They've asked tenderers to consider other options, I think. So basically, I think while the tender process is open, it's got a very strong environmental statement in there, and then further detail provided by MCA. I hope that councillors will be reassured by that. It's an ongoing dialogue. There will be future opportunities for members of the joint working group to make the case for going further on environmental issues. But I don't think we need to, at this stage, involve the consultant. And I hope that the report that councillors receive imminently will also reassure them of that.
Okay, thank you for that, Sarah.
Well, that is a relief, actually, because I was concerned about the ongoing amounts that it was going to cost us for Underhill. Putting in the ground source heat pump now would be a lot less than in a few years' time, when the central heating would have to be ripped out because it's obsolete, and then putting it in and digging up 3G pitch simply to get the ground source heat pump in, and in the meantime paying astronomical bills which would have to come out of our pockets, taxpayers' pockets, is not acceptable. So I am relieved. I'm glad. It's common sense, as Richard said, with what's happening at the moment. If ever we needed somebody to say, hey, you really need to think of alternative ways of heating your space, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to come in on this as well, putting my chairs aside for 1 minute. As Rebecca says, I have also seen this report, I've got it in front of me at the moment. I won't read it all out because it's quite a sizable statement in relation to the environmental impact. But the point I made last time, and I really think that we do need to bear this in mind, is one of the provisos and one of the checks and balances that we've put into this project is our monitoring surveyor. And I really think that we need to have trust in our monitoring surveyor because they are the experts in this sort of field. And we will need to seek advice and guidance from our monitoring surveyor. None of us around this table here have got building experience, quantity development experience and stuff like that. That is why we've appointed a monitoring surveyor. So my feeling is I would agree with Rebecca on this, that in this point of time, I really think that we need to go with the statement that we've got in the statement of intent from the tender that's gone out, and then seek guidance from our monitoring surveyor and advice from our monitoring surveyor if there are any other issues we need to raise with MCA and the contractors going forward. So Louise?
Yeah, why didn't we just go solar? I mean, why are we looking at gas?
Well, to be honest, all this, Louise, we don't, this is why we need, why we need the advice of people like the monitoring surveyor.
Sorry, Martin, we don't need advice. We can contact a solar specialist. They can come out, they can tell us how much it's going to cost, and it's cheaper than gas, and you won't have to worry about ripping it all up. It just makes a lot of sense. That's my opinion.
Okay, but like the whole point of us employing surveyors is to guide us in the overall development. As I sort of said, one of the things that we had in discussion was that early on in the process there was discussion of using gas boilers. Now they've decided to move away very much so from gas boilers. But what is going to be the most energy efficient? One of the things we've got to remember is one of the other major funders of this project are the Welsh Government. And they, of course, have got, very key environmental concerns that they're going to be wanted to be looking at, and that they're going to be needed to be taken account to as well. Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't know any of that when I put this recommendation forward. It was purely put forward because it was voted down on a misinformation last time. But if we know that MCA have actually moved away from a gas boiler and are looking at alternative sources, then perhaps rather than getting a consultant, we should just perhaps make the recommendation that once the tenders come in, that our monitoring officer, that we kind of, resolve to make sure that they provide us with very clear information regarding the different installation and running costs of the different types, so that we then as a council can look at the options and actually make a decision then as to what we think is going to be the most appropriate way to go forward.
Okay, Rebecca, and then Will.
Yeah, it was just a point of information for Councillor Louise Thomas. As I said in committee when the issue of solar was raised, it was explored at an earlier stage. This isn't the first time we've been talking to MCA about environmental considerations, and because of the design of the building, the volume of the roof space doesn't make it efficient to have solar panels to provide the energy for the inside of the building. So it has been looked into.
Okay, thank you for that. Will?
Yeah, just a point to say, yeah, it was a flippant comment with the 300,000 to 400,000, obviously, for the building. However, in the last meeting, when I did say the tender had gone out, that was the information that I had verbally from a member of MCA. So, obviously they were wrong and had given me wrong information. So that's where that came from.
Okay, thanks for that. So going forward, the recommendation is our consultant is invited to a meeting of MCA to discuss the report of cost of £285. And then the second one is following the meeting, MCC consultants to produce a costed list of actions to be considered at the cost of £450. Now,
Well, I was trying to make an amendment that would be based on the most recent information, that rather than us paying a consultant, that we make an amendment to that, which says that once the tenders come in, that we are given full information about the alternative cost options, and that full council have an opportunity at that point to look at those different options.
So we're asking for this report from our monitoring surveyor. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Rebecca?
Sorry, Stefan's going to want to input into this as well, but I really respect where Carrie's coming from. I'm not totally convinced that works in terms of procurement, because when the tenders come in, they'll be analysed and assessed by an independent panel with their employer's agent, and presumably with our monitoring surveyor having oversight scrutiny, but not necessarily input. And that's because you have to consider the tenders against a set list of criteria to ensure that you've got kind of parity.
Yeah, of course.
So just, I mean, I'm not a procurement expert. I have previously worked in procurement, and my instinct is that might not work.
Okay, so I just want to be sure that we have some input into, you know, this is really important. You know, this is something that will impact on all of us. And we're talking at the moment about putting in a building that may be obsolete in less than 10 years' time. So, you know, we need to be able to have some reassurance that, in fact, alternative and sustainable systems for heating, lighting, and managing the building are, you know, incorporated into its design.
Yeah, but my feeling is that is very much the role of the monitoring surveyor. Steve?
Yeah, I was just a bit of information to help out. My understanding from what the monitoring surveyor is telling me, and I have forwarded it to the joint working group, is that they actually look at the tender now, what as it is, that's now just been sent out. So Carrie's questions that she's suggesting in her amendment could still be asked, that the monitoring surveyor do that as part of that assessment.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah. So where does this leave us with the resolution?
Well, we vote on the amendment.
Well, I thought that's what Rebecca was saying, is if we vote on that amendment, we won't be able to conform to the...
Martin, my point was saying, Rebecca was talking about what happens when the tenders are returned.
Yeah.
Our monitoring surveyor says that a part of his duties for us is to look at the tender as it's sent out and comment on that to us. So it's perfectly proper for us to ask him to highlight those green issues, which is what Carrie's amendment is. So I don't think the timing is a problem. I don't think Rebecca's quite correct in what she's saying, but the fact is that the monitoring officer is doing it before the tenders come back.
Right on. So in the first instance, we vote on the
amendment. No, the amendment.
Sorry, on the amendment. Then we okay. So all those in favour of the amendment?
I'm really sorry. Can you just say what the amendment is exactly?
Yeah.
So it's that, I mean, now that Steve has clarified, it's that the monitoring officer is requested by full council to ensure that all sustainable options for heating and lighting the building are considered, and that decisions are made based on, you know, using those most sustainable in the long term, rather than just this is cheap now, but it's going to cost us a fortune over the next 10 years.
That's snappy,
I
isn't
don't know
it?
how to put it as a tidy, maybe Steve can, you know, come
Okay,
up with
Steve,
some
can
nice.
you work that into a recommendation? In the meantime, I'll ask for Ian to come in.
Well, just on that point, Carrie, you amended what you said.
Yes, sorry,
All you can do at this stage is ask for, as the monitoring surveyor is looking at the tender, to comment on the green aspects that you've highlighted, the heating, and let us know what the position is. They can't influence anything, as Rebecca said, at this stage.
The monitoring surveyor comment on the tender as it's received, but my feeling would be that would be the role of the monitoring surveyor anyway. But anyway, Ian.
Sorry, can I just speak to that, Martin? All the resolution, you're quite right. He's already written to us saying, I should do that. Have you got the green light to do that, which we were waiting for the committee to confirm. So it's a natural thing, and all you're doing is asking them to make sure they pay attention to the heating and lighting.
Okay. Ian, you're on mute, Ian, sorry.
Why can't we just let the monitoring surveyor get on with what we're paying him for, instead of delaying everything all the time? Things like heating and lighting come in as part of placemaking and planning. You know, the Welsh Government have got endless guides out and all these sorts of things. And yet, you know, we seem to be stalling on it all the time. I'm concerned if we've signed a contract, we've signed a contract.
Hopefully, though, Ian, even if we pass this amendment, I don't think it shouldn't lend to any delay. Rebecca Singh. Rebecca Singh.
Yeah, sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, I think may as well pass the amendment, doesn't it? It seems to make logical sense.
Okay. Okay, then. So if we can all just vote on the amendment, all those in favour of the amendment.
Yep.
Okay. So that amendment's passed, I would say. So do we have to vote on the recommendation then, Steve? Hopefully not.
Well, basically, although you didn't technically say it, the amendment was to remove item 2 and to amend the first thing to read our monitoring surveyor. So you've effectively voted on it,
Yeah.
Okay, so can I move on to questions for the Chair and Environmental Committee? No questions? Right, recommendations for the Culture, Tourism and Communications Committee, monthly coffee afternoons. Recommended that a trial coffee afternoon is held in association with the neighbourhood friends in the Austrian at the cost of no more than £150. Rob, did you want to say anything to this? It's pretty straightforward, mind. You're on mute, Rob.
Yeah, as you say, Mart, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I'll answer any questions if anybody's got some, but hopefully we can go straight to a vote.
Yeah, I think so. Unless anybody's got any questions, I think we can go straight to a vote on this. All those in favour of the coffee afternoon? Okay, that's passed. Christmas lights, using funds from CTC3, Christmas motif CTC4, Christmas tree CTC5, inspection of South End tree CTC6, new Christmas motif CTC7, new Christmas lights. Recommended the Phillips be asked to order shorter trees, 20 metres, on the advice from the RF or the quote from Phillips to arrange a Christmas lighting to be accepted. Anybody got anything to say on this? Or what's?
Oh.
Any questions?
Joe, it should be shorter, bushier trees, my error. Just to explain, the idea was to make them rather than long and thin.
Long and thin, yeah.
Wider.
Changing fashion of trees, really. Okay.
Ian's got a
Ian,
question.
sorry, yeah, I got the end of that, Ian.
You're on mute,
You're
Ian.
on-
Ian, you're mute.
I've proposed in the past, we ought to be looking at living trees, and I thought that would have been environmentally far better and far more cost effective.
I thought we talked about adopting a tree at one point anyway, but anyway. Connie?
Yeah, it's just a very, very minor point, but I don't actually think that the trees are going to be 20 meters high. Possibly that should be 20 foot.
20 foot,
think
yeah,
20
good
foot.
point.
Just thought we should correct that before we approve a 20-meter high tree.
Yes.
Quite an
Right.
attraction, isn't it?
You're on
You're on
mute,
mute, love.
I like that thought about the living trees. Has anybody actually looked into the cost of obtaining and planting a 20-foot tree?
Can I
Have you
answer
any
that,
prices on
Chair?
that?
Yeah, Sarah, yeah, go on, Sarah.
Years ago, Helen Mitchell, the late great Helen Mitchell, looked into it, and there was no end of problems with actually
Yeah.
planting a tree in the green. It was like banging your head against a brick wall. We could try
Thank
again.
you.
Okay.
We have
Lin-
planted one in Newton. Tony Colbert
Yeah.
We have
planted
got
one
one
in Newton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Linda.
it can be done. It can be done.
Linda?
Wasn't that one 3 feet tall?
It's
Yeah.
bigger than that now, Pam.
Grow, won't it? It's a tree.
Can we let Linda speak, please?
Yeah, okay. I can go back and I can say with Sarah, I mean, we've gone back a long, long time. Because that was the very first thing that I did when I got onto the council, was submit the idea of a living tree, and it was planted outside Ostream. And we had all the advice, all the, set it all up, and it died within the first year. And it was absolutely a nightmare. The price, trying to get the electrics to light it all up. And as Sarah knows, it was absolutely, that was even before Helen, and then Helen tried, and it's just not been easy. I don't know how well did it. I think that was amazing that he's managed to get one up there and sort of.
Okay.
He tried.
No, not do that.
Well, as I said, I thought we'd had a discussion at some point about adopting a tree, that we'd have it for 3 years and then it would grow, and then we'd move it somewhere else. Maybe I dreamt that, I don't know.
Can we go to a vote, Mart, if there's nothing else?
Yeah. Anybody else got anything to say? Will, have you got something to say? Oh, Steve has got something to say.
No,
Yeah, just
sorry.
a point of information. It was a Mumbles Community Council tree that's on Picket Mead,
Oh, okay.
not an individual councillors.
Okay. Will, were you saying something?
He's
No,
taking his hand
sorry.
down.
Okay, so can we go to a vote? All those in favour? Okay, that's been passed. Questions for the chair, culture, tourism and communications? Any questions? No. Councillor attendance. It is proposed that councillors' attendance at full council and committees they stand on are publicised for the entire terms of the office on the website under councillor profiles. This is proposed by Lord Marshall and seconded by Carrie Townsend Jones. Rob, Carrie, do you want to speak to this? Or
Just to say that Swansea City Council do it. They have them on their councillor profiles, the attendance, and I think it's only fair, especially in an election year, that the council have that the public have that sort of information when they're deciding who they're going to vote for.
okay, anybody else want to speak to this?
Yeah, could
Will
I
Thomas,
speak?
sorry.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Encourage attendance. I think the only thing that's a little bit tricky about it is, if it was the case at the beginning of the term, would people have made more of an effort? Maybe so, but that's maybe the way it is. But are we, would it be fair to do it from now onwards, maybe, rather than predating it? I haven't got any. Let me just say, I haven't got any strong feelings either way.
If I can come back to Will on that after, Mark, that's fine.
Okay.
Just to say that if we did it from now, then that's exactly what would happen, is councils will turn up to every meeting. The fact that, you know, maybe some haven't, shouldn't be taken into account from, I mean, it shouldn't be an incentive that it's going to, or, you know, a threat that, you know, if you don't turn up, it's going to be on the website. People haven't turned up, they haven't turned up. So, you know, what's the difference? I think it should be up there. It's public information, and it's on the Swansea Council website anyway.
Okay, Louise, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say that the next meetings going forward, it'd be nice if we had a balance of speakers, because it seems to be, again, like I said before, the same voices. So, you know, we're a full committee, and I think that's quite important. Thank you.
I haven't said much tonight, Louise.
Please, Rob.
You're right, Rob.
Please, Rob. Rebecca Fogarty.
The point I was going to make was, can it just be done in a way that reflects if there's been a particularly good reason for an extended period of absence? You know, in the past, if you went on maternity leave in elected office, you were just recorded as absent. And I think that's grossly unfair. And same for a period of illness, obviously. So if we can just do it in a way that fairly reflects the circumstances of people, I think otherwise fully in favour.
Yeah, that was just the point I wanted to raise as well, really, just a word of sort of caution, because sometimes people have, you know, got very good reason to not to be attending meetings. You know, as I said, pregnancy, bereavement, illness, or what have you. And again, you know, we don't really want to get into the posting people's medical histories or personal histories or sort of stuff like that. But I do sort of think that we do need to, if we're going to go down this route, at least be a little bit considerate in relation to how these are recorded. Carrie?
Yeah, it was actually something that had occurred to me, and I think perhaps we should put a note alongside, you know, people who want to take an extended period of time, they put the request through to full council, as Adam has done, as Rebecca did when she was away. And I think it's just a matter of, you know, it says, you know, approved absence for, you know, X amount of time. And then it's very clear when you're away, because you've got, you know, a particular reason to be away, like maternity leave or extended leave of some sort, as against those who just don't turn up.
Yeah, good point.
I'm happy to have that in as an amendment, Martin.
Do we need to put that in as an amendment, Steve, or can we just have that as a note, really?
Sorry, Chair, just unmuted myself. Yeah, it depends on how you want to display it. Yeah, I take on board what you're saying. So are you talking that there's 12 meetings in the, well, say there's 12 meetings in the year, just for argument's sake. If you go to 8 of them, you'd have a score of 8 out of 12, whatever percentage that is. But if some of them were an agreed absence, a note would be made that the council agreed to an absence of 6 months due to whatever. You know. That's fine. You don't need to put it in the motion. Then you to come from you now. That I know what you want.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, so if we could take that straight to the vote, then all those in favour of that?
Why not?
Okay, that passed then again. So we're gonna have to put it to council as well to suspend standing orders, because we've gone over 2 hours now. All those in favour?
Aye.
Well, Chair, it's only one more item, so.
Yeah, I know, but we have, I'm just being, you know.
Yeah, sure.
Question council representative on outside bodies. Any questions?
Chair, can I just say, normally there will be, once these meetings start, as part of your agenda pack, there will be a list of everyone representing the group with their, hopefully with their mini reports on that. I haven't prepared this one because I don't think anyone's been to anything, and I've not had anything, but so I don't know whether anyone's been to something that they want to report back now.
I mean, Rebecca and myself attended the One Voice Wales Innovation Conference. We can put a report together if council would like it.
Yes.
And it wasn't, we weren't there as representatives of an outside body, but, you know, it was actually a very interesting and useful conference. And, you know, I'm sure Rebecca and I'd be more than happy to put something together that could be circulated.
Okay, thank you for that. Rob?
I'd rather read about it than hear about it now.
Yeah.
I said, put report together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in case you didn't.
Okay, Rebecca Fogarty.
I attended the presentation of the new set of books for Oystermouth Library. You can read about it on our website.
There we go. Any other things that people want to report about? If not, I think I can draw this meeting to a close. Can I not, Steve?
Louise had a hand up, Martin.
Oh, sorry, Louise.
Yeah, just to say that I attended a protest for the residents on the weekend. That was quite high profile, but there you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Were you representing the council, Louise?
No, not at all. I was a councillor. I am a councillor, and there was other councillors there. But no, we didn't have any representation from Mumbles Council.
Then it's not part of this item.
Okay.
These are people who have been elected by MCC to represent the council on outside bodies.
Well, the
Okay.
fact that it was actually quite out there, I think it would have been nice to actually have some representation, given the situation. That they
This goes back to the discussion that we had right at the very beginning of the meeting. Is, as I've said per se, this is not a Mumbles Community Council initiative. As yet, we haven't formally discussed it. We haven't got an official position. But as I sort of said, following the discussion that we've had earlier on, I do think that this is something that, as I sort of said myself, the vice chair and the clerk maybe need to discuss, because there is obviously a degree of passion around the screen here in relation to this development. And as a community council, I do feel that, you know, I think it was you, Louise, who made the point that, you know, we have got the term community in the council title, that we do need to think about what position, or if we've got a position, or how we take that position forward. But there are a lot of different things that we need to take into account. I'll bring you in, but I think everybody's
I personally didn't know anything about that. So if the councillors on Mumbles Community Council who knew about it had informed the rest of us, then we might have been able to go along and just listen in. But I didn't know about it, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's no problem. That's another issue. But as I should have said, I'd like to bring the meeting to a close now.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a nice evening, the rest of your evening, as much as you can. Okay, thank you all.
Thank
for
you,
your time.
Martin.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.